our manager. She's going to kind of introduce herself, and I'll let her do that as part of what she'll be speaking about. So I'm going to stop sharing. Cameron, take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. I think I might have most anxiety this morning about making sure I share this PowerPoint correctly. So if I get this first part right, I feel like we're going to be smooth sailing. Is it showing correctly?
Perfect.
Yeah. All right, the first battle has been won. Okay, so I went kind of back and forth, having a little bit of fun with the title of this presentation, because at first it was, when you think about balancing home and your career, that meant to me balancing motherhood and a career. So it started with balancing mom and my career, and it evolved into, well, I'm a wife too, and he's always looking for stuff. So to me, I hear babe. And then at the very end of titling this presentation, in parentheses, I added the little "and me," because I'm different outside of who I am as a mom and who I am as a wife, who I am as an HR person. There's things that I like to cut out and balance in life that make me as well. And I'll talk a little bit about that in my presentation. But just to be a little bit interactive and learn a little bit about each other on this call, I would like to open up the chat and hear a little bit about from you guys on what you're balancing along with your career. Are you balancing being a dog mom? What kind of dogs do you have? Do you have 6 children or 10 children? Or are you a caregiver for a parent? I just think this is a fun opportunity to learn a little bit about each other and get some fun facts. I don't even know how to look at the chat. I'm asking y'all to chat. If I click the chat, will it show me the chat? That is what's happening. So someone just has to start, and then more people just, there we go. 2 dogs, 16-year-old. Amber, you are awesome. Lots of dogs, no cat people in here. I'm praying for all of you teenage mothers out there that are raising these teenage children. I'm assuming y'all are reading these along with me. I don't have to read them all to you. 2 adult kids. That's an empty nester. I'm so far away from that. 100 pound.
Don't feel like you are, because then they have grandkids and then it's never an empty nest.
It starts over.
It starts over. Like today, my two of my 3 grandkids didn't have preschool because of the holidays, so they're off, and here they are. I'm like, hey, they're like, what's for breakfast? I'm all, damn it. Never ends.
Awesome. Something to look forward to.
Oh yeah, most definitely. It's a different kind of love. Like I always laughed when people said that and I didn't believe them. But now when I look at them, I'm like, okay, it's totally different.
I saw the donkeys and first thought it was Stephanie, but it's someone else that has donkeys too.
Hey, I just put my husband.
That's enough, Stephanie. That's a full plate on the side.
That's a full-time job in itself. Yep.
That's awesome.
Or I could have said jackass. It would have covered my donkeys and my husband.
All right.
Too funny.
It looks like the comments have slowed down a bit. Feel free to continue to pop them in there if you'd like, but I'll go ahead and distract myself from that open chat and move right on. So as you can see, we are all balancing a lot of things along with our career, and all those things are super important to us. So I'll give a disclaimer at the beginning of this presentation. I'm not going to give you any aha moments. I'm not going to tell you how perfect I am at work-life balance. What I hope that I do is that you relate to me by the end of this presentation and realize that you're not alone in this struggle, that there is really no perfect balance. I was privileged last year to go to the Breaking the Mold Women's in the Plastics Industry Conference in Nashville. And I know some of you on this call were there with me, and it was so enlightening to see some of these women CEOs and general managers and business owners get up there and talk about forgetting to get their kid at school pickup at the end of the day, and those like hard mom failures and how even at their level, I can still relate to them and they can relate to me. So at the end of the day, you strip all that away. We all have the same struggles, which I hope at the end of this presentation, you can feel like you can be a little more open about those struggles, that people are really willing to empathize with you and support you in that. So like I said, I'm not perfect at any of these points that I've got listed out in my agenda, but it's something that I have goals for and that I aim towards, and I hope that you relate to. So I'll do a little bit of an introduction to myself. So a little bit about my work history. I start my career all the way back to FedEx Ground. I was a package handler in college. This is how I paid for my schooling through tuition reimbursement, but I was there at 3 o'clock in the morning, shoving boxes between home delivery and ground. And then I would go to my college classes afterwards. But I worked really hard and finally got an opportunity to promote into an administrative position, which led into some opportunities that got my feet wet in HR without an HR title. So new hire orientation and I-9s and file building and different things like that just kind of get your toes wet into that. And when I really tapped out of my career in that particular FedEx Ground plant, I got an opportunity at Nestle USA in Jonesboro as well. It's from Northeast Arkansas. And at Nestle, we made Stouffer's and lean cuisines. Everyone thinks they make chocolate, but I was in the frozen food manufacturing there. And I got a wealth of experience at Nestle. I started as their representative and I grew into their coordinator. I got to be a project manager over a new scheduling app that they implemented, where I got to work with a crew across the ocean in the UK and build this scheduling app and roll it out. And it was the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life. But looking back on it, I was so proud. I got really, really deep into TPM there. If you're familiar with TPM methodology, I was on that ENT pillar, I was on the PM pillar, I was on the GA pillar, I owned the competency matrix. So just a lot of stress. And I can tell you that this was the point in my life where work-life balance went and completely fell apart. I let go of boundaries. I was working ridiculous amounts of hours, and it was incredibly, incredibly stressful. So when I moved to Central Arkansas, this is where most of my family is. So we moved to Central Arkansas in August of 2021, and I started here at Revolution as a generalist. And when I got here, I had some boundaries, y'all, some tall boundaries of I'm going to stay in my sandbox. I don't want outside of this sandbox. I just want to do my job. And little by little, I have found healthier boundaries with that, where I can reach out and work on other things and branch out a little bit more. But I can tell you, I was really, really hard on kind of jumping out of my own little realm when I first got here. But I have really, really enjoyed my time at Revolution. There's a reason that says and counting. I plan on being here for a very long time. I became the HR manager for Little Rock last year, and I have big plans and things to do here. My education, I do have a bachelor's in psychology at ASU in Jonesboro. At one point in time, I was going to be a family counselor, but HR is the next best thing. I like to joke that I have an almost 9-year-old son instead of a master's degree. So that's where I balance life at that fork in the road. But that's a little bit about my history and my background. And then here is my family that I have alluded to. So this is my husband, Walter. We have been married going on 10 years. I have a stepdaughter. Her name is London. She is almost 13 years old. I've been in her life since I met her when she was about 18 months old. And she lives in South Carolina. She's homeschooled. And South Carolina is a new thing for us. She did live in Arkansas once upon a time. So that's been a bit of a struggle this year. But because she's homeschooled, she spends about 2 weeks out of the month with us. But it's definitely been different this year. And then I have my almost 9-year-old son, Lewis, and then my youngest Sour Patch child. His name is Walter Kyle, and we nicknamed him Kai. But yeah, this is the Morris family. And so I've talked now about my career. I've talked about my family, who I am as a wife, who I am as a mom, and now we get to talk about me. So I have a little fun with this slide. This is what I carve out time in my free time to be. Oh, thank you, Digna. I love to fish. I would love to know if there's other fishermen or women on the call. If you want to heart or clap or whatever you want to do. But this is what I like to do. Something I love about being part of Central Arkansas is I'm only 45 minutes from my favorite fishing lake. And I do carve out time whenever I can to get out on the lake with my husband. This is something we love to spend time doing. Actually, that middle photo where I'm like really cold, I believe that was in January of this year, where the weather was going to be just nice enough to go out on the water. And I reached out to Tessa, who's my manager, and was like, can I take a last minute PTO day? And so I'd sent her that photo. It was like, see, I had a great time. Thanks for letting me off work. So sometimes you find those little moments where the weather and your work schedule, align just perfectly to get out there and get it done. But this was really just an excuse to show my awesome fish. We love to bass fish and to crappie fish, and all of these were caught out on Lake DeGray in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. All right. We'll jump into the agenda now that you guys know a little bit more about me. We're going to talk about forgetting about perfection, being present where you are, a routine and prioritization, supporting others, and accepting and seeking support yourself. So forgetting about perfection. Perfect balance is an absolute myth, like I disclosed at the beginning of this presentation. That's a hard pill for me to swallow. I'm a recovering perfectionist. Motherhood really beat the perfectionist out of me and was like, no, you can't do that anymore. Those baseboards are going to have to wait till next weekend to clean or whatever that is. So I've learned to give myself grace. And in learning to give myself grace, I've really learned how to give others that same grace as well and be really flexible. I try to do it all. At that same Nashville trip last year, I got a call from my son, the middle child, Lewis, where there was a lunch at school where apparently parents were invited. I didn't get that memo. No one showed up for his lunch. The guilt trip I got put through, but it was pretty hardcore. It was really hard for my mom's soul to be stuck in Nashville. And I knew that my son had sat alone at lunch that day, and I just wanted to hug him. I was so sad. But, you have to give yourself grace in those moments. Like I said, those women that I listen to speak, that CEO forgetting to pick her kid up at school pickup that afternoon, we're all going through those things. So we have to give each other grace through these and be flexible with our own expectations of ourselves. This is really about our mental health and how we handle things that are going to be imperfect and that aren't going to go the way that we expected them to go. Being present where you are. Once you make that decision, stick with that decision and make the best use of your time. Turn that guilty message off. Leave work at work. Leave home at home to the best that you can, right? Not always completely possible, and we can support each other when it's not. But just for instance, I had a sick kid last week, so there was a little bit of remote work for me going on last week, and that wasn't ideal. There was times I really did need to kind of it would have made things easier for me if I was there on site, but I made my decision. I made that best use of the time. And something that I have honestly gotten a lot better about is turning that guilty message off. I know when to, prioritize one thing over another, and when to say, this is just the way that it is. And it's not productive to feel guilty about it. Even if later on I'm like, maybe I did make the wrong decision. I'll just make the right one next time, prioritize differently maybe next time, but it's not doing myself any good or anybody else any good if I'm continuously doing that. And I promise you, when we are sitting there feeling guilty about a decision we've made, whether to prioritize work or to prioritize home, no one else is really thinking that of us, right? We're our hardest critics, and we're doing that to ourselves. So really make that decision, be present where you are, make the best use of your time. Routine and prioritize. I'm a big routine person. I wake up at 4:15 in the morning and I go to bed at 7:30 at night, and it is like clockwork. I keep a very similar schedule on the weekends. I've always been an early riser, and I really like to go to bed with the chickens. So I highly recommend, even if it's not as strict as a routine as I have, it's something that I feel makes my day a little less chaotic, is by having a really good schedule and routine. I actually coach employees on that regularly, whether they have, issues with attendance or whatever that is. I think it comes more natural to people than other things, but I really, really recommend a good routine and prioritizing each day what is most important to you. I don't know if I've made this up or if I heard it somewhere. Maybe it was on a women's ERG that I heard it before. But I know here in my office, myself and my HR generalist, Nicole, we talk every day about glass balls and plastic balls, because every day we're juggling things, right? And so at the end of the day, there's some things that are going to move from today's to-do list to tomorrow's to-do list. And what gets moved to tomorrow are plastic balls. We can let those fall. They're not going to break. We'll pick them back up tomorrow and it's going to be okay. So there's times where I'll even say, hey, Nicole, we need to get this done, but it's plastic. You don't have to worry about that today. Or, hey, this is really a glass ball. I really need you to, don't drop this. Let's make sure that this gets going. And those priorities are going to change every day. What might be a plastic ball today could turn glass magically tomorrow because it did get put off an extra day. So really figuring that out every single day. And what future you is going to be proud of the following day or 6 months from now. My husband always makes fun of me because I have little victories in the day. It can be something as simple as washing my hair tonight instead of having to get up even earlier and washing it tomorrow morning. And I will say, future Cameron is going to be so happy that I washed my hair tonight and didn't have to get up as early the next day. And so whether that's future you tomorrow or future you 6 months from now, those little victories that you are prioritizing in your life will make a difference. Being proud of yourself is a healthy mindset to be in. And so making those priorities that are important to you every day. Supporting others, empathizing with others is not only engaging, but it's also empowering. I had the experience of two very, very different managers very close in my career. In a previous life, I worked for a manager at a different company that was around my age. They were not married and they did not have any children. And I was at this phase in my life where my boys, they're only 3 years apart, and they were passing viruses back and forth in daycare. And I swear it was every other week. One of them was sick. And then 2 days later, it was the other one that was sick. My husband at that time was higher in his career than my job as an HR representative. So it was always me that got stuck at home because his priorities were always bigger. So it was like, Cameron, you have to be the one that stays home with them today. And sometimes the text message I got back and was like, hey, I'm so sorry. Lewis is sick. He's running fever. He can't be at school today. It was, okay. And it was shot off so quickly. And the way that one simple letter hurt my heart and made me feel like I let my whole team down. And then maybe a day or two later when I was able to return to work and I didn't hear, hey, how is Lewis? How's your whole family? How are you? Because any mom on this call, you know that after spending a couple of days home with a sick kid, you are mentally not okay most of the time. And so there weren't those questions getting asked. And I constantly felt like I was letting my team down when I was having to be off work to choose, what home life was to me. And then you fast forward, it was actually my very first boss here at Revolution. He doesn't work for the company anymore. But I remember the very first time my youngest was sick and I tried to come to work. And I walked into that office and he said, how's Kai? And I said, well, he's still running a fever. And I've left him with my husband. My husband works nights, so he's able to be home, but my husband's very tired when I do that to him. And so I was like, he's home. And my manager he kicked me out. He said, there's nothing that you can't do from home that you would do here. Pack your stuff up and go home. It's going to be okay. And I understand that, we're not all in a position to be able to do that in our positions, but what that meant to me as his employee and the loyalty he got from me, how hard I wanted to work for him after that, I can't even describe. I still remember where I was when I did hit the road to head back home. I live about 45 minutes from the plant, and I called my sister and I was like, you won't believe what just happened. And she just went on and on, Cameron, that's amazing. You don't find that everywhere that you go. And I felt so supported by him. I felt so empowered to be a great mom and a great employee, and the engagement was, it's indescribable. So as you are able to be there for your own employees, if you are a manager or if you're an individual contributor, as you can, look out for those next to you and not make your peer feel guilty for they had to choose something from home. Maybe it was to take a parent to, maybe it was to take a parent to the doctor, or, maybe they're a fur mom or dad and there was something seriously wrong with their pet and they took a day off to go care for that pet, whatever that is. If it's important to them, they're a whole person. They're not just their career. And the more that you can empathize with somebody and engage in what's going on, and before you tell them all the things that they missed, check in on them and how are they doing, because the empowerment that you feel on the other side of that is just really, really powerful. And if I can find my mouse, there it is. My last thing is seeking support. I disclosed at the very beginning of this presentation that I am not perfect at any of these things. I struggle with all of the points that I'm highlighting on here, and we all can't be perfect all the time. There's times where I'm going to pick the wrong priority. There's going to be times where I can't turn that guilty message off. There's going to be times where I feel completely imperfect in all aspects of life. And I know that all of you guys feel those same things too. And so we have an awesome program through our company. It's the EAP. It's the Employee Assistance Program. This is just a small list of things that they support, all the different things that you could be balancing, what home means to you, whether that means, recent loss or grief, relationship problems, dependent care, depression. Don't ever feel like you're facing this alone. Like I said, I really hope that you identified with things that I'm struggling with, and all of the, the emojis and things that were popping up. I can see that other people identify with my own struggles as well. So we're all in this together. You are not alone. And this system right here is here to support you in that. There's more information about the EAP on rev411.com. And you can also always ask your HR representative for more information on this as well. It's completely free. It's completely confidential. So any of our employees can use it, and the family members of our employees can use it as well. So it's definitely there. But that is all for my presentation. I appreciate all of you sitting back and listening and engaging with me. And thank you so much, Cherish, for inviting me to speak.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. And the glass ball versus plastic, so good. So thank you very much. And everyone, at the end, after we have Kristen speak, we'll be open for questions. You can ask some questions then. And thank you again, Cameron. And we're going to turn it over to Kristen now. So if you don't mind, Cameron, stop sharing, and then Kristen will go ahead.
There, I was trying to find that stop sharing button. Thank you so much. It's on the other side of the screen now, but I found it.
Okay, no, thank you again.
All right, let me see if I can share mine. Now I wish I would have went first. Cameron did so good. It's like singing after Celine Dion. Like, who wants to go after that? Like, oh my goodness. Let me see if I can get this up here. Okay. And presentation mode. Here we go. Okay, can y'all see that?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So a little bit about me. I'm the local HR manager for the Mesquite location, and I'm the director of training and development for Revolution. So I've kind of been doing this dual role for, I guess, a little bit over a year now. So if you've attended any of the professional development series or the technical development series sessions that we host each month, you probably seen me on there kind of kicking those off. And then I've been to all of our locations, I think now, except for Oakdale and Shelbyville. So I've been going to these other locations and working with our supervisors. And then next week we have our week at Ramp. And so hopefully I'll get to meet some more of you in person there. So a little bit about me on the personal side. So I have my bachelor's degree. I went to Texas A&M in commerce. So I was born and raised in Wolf City, Texas. So I'm pretty sure nobody on this call probably knows where that is, or I'd be very shocked if you did. So it's a very, very small town right outside of Greenville and Commerce. It's about an hour and a half east of here. So I grew up very way out in the country, very secluded, spent a lot of time alone outside of going to school. It's pretty much just like me and my brother and my parents out there. And my brother and I didn't get along that well, so it was pretty much a lot of alone time. So I grew up like riding horses and being very involved in like rodeo and barrel racing and that kind of thing. So very Texas of me, I guess. But I remember, riding through the pastures and then like hundreds, if not thousands, of like grasshoppers and stuff just jumping as I'm riding my horse through these pastures. But now I realize I've definitely kind of converted over to more of a city girl. Like I need like a target within 10, 15 minutes of me. And like if a grasshopper touched me, I'd probably about lose it. So I think I'm kind of converted over now. So like I said, I was born and raised in Wolf City, and then kind of my latter years of school, we moved to Texarkana, Texas. So if you're familiar with Texas at all, it's a border town. So half of Texarkana is Texas, and then half of Texarkana is Arkansas. So kind of one of those spots like you can go into the downtown, you put one foot on each side and take a picture. So a lot of people know of it as that. And most importantly, probably should be the first thing on this list, is I have just one daughter. Her name is Trinity, and she is pretty much who consumes all of my time outside of work. So I don't have any really hobbies per se for myself. And I don't have any secret talents or anything. So pretty much my hobby is just that. It's watching her play basketball. So she's been playing basketball since she's been about 7 or 8 years old, I guess. So she's and she's turning 16 next month on Thanksgiving Day. So she's gonna be 16. So everybody keeps telling me like, oh, just wait till they're, a teenager, and, you're going to be like, can't wait to get them out of the house. And I'm very blessed. I haven't experienced that yet, but we'll see how it goes when she gets in a car and starts being her own transportation. So like I said, she's been playing basketball since she's been about 8 years old. And that's pretty much what all of my time is consumed with. So she was a freshman last year and she played on varsity. And so I was very proud of that. And then the rest of the year, we're traveling for her AAU team. So we're kind of all over the place. So that's pretty much what I spend all my PTO time doing, and all my free time throughout the week. Basically, it pretty much eats away all my personal time when we're talking about work-life balance. That's pretty much what takes most of it all the way. Which also leads to kind of why I took this job at Revolution. I was at my previous job for 13 years. So it was a company called First Choice Medical Supply, and they got bought out by a couple times and ended with McKesson. If anybody knows what McKesson is, I was part of the medical surgical division there, and they were going to close the location that I was working at, which is not far from actually the building that I work in Mesquite now. They were closing that building, and so they reached out and they said they have, a couple opportunities that came up for their location in Grapevine. But if you're familiar with the Dallas area, if you live in Mesquite and you're driving toward Grapevine every day, it's pretty daunting, especially if you have to be there in the morning hours. It's traffic and there's just, construction that seems to be never ending. And so I decided to, not take that offer and kind of start searching and looking to see what else is out there, because it's one of those choices that I made, like Cameron was mentioning, is like, you come to this fork in the road and it's like, okay, what am I going to do? Because if I would have taken that job, I would have had less work-life balance, because I have to factor in the traffic and the transportation piece of it. So I was thinking, like, I wouldn't be able to take her to school every day. I would never be able to make it home in time to go to any of her games or anything like that. So that's kind of just where I made that choice to, decline their offer and start looking for something else instead. So about the time when COVID started happening, I was looking for a job, which is kind of probably not the best time to be looking for a job, but it worked out because, the Mesquite plant is just like 15 minutes from home. And so it was just a really good fit for me. So anyway, so Cameron kind of did such a good job on hitting all the topics. So there'll be a little bit of overlap, but I just thought I would speak to, I guess, just from my perspective and kind of how I personally handle my work-life balance. And then also kind of just my way of thinking about things, or my state of mind to keep myself in some kind of positive, good headspace, and some ways that I try to limit my stress level. I think that's kind of one of, I don't want to say a pet peeve, but, people always say, oh, don't stress about that. Oh, stop stressing about it. Stop thinking about it. And it's like, how do you do that? How are you supposed to do that? Where is this secret to not stress about things? And so definitely something that I still struggle with, but I found kind of ways to approach that stress and to kind of manage it the best I can. And knowing that there's not a perfect way, it's just your way. And so my way of doing things may not be the best way for you to do things, or, not even in a certain order. So for example, I didn't do things in the perfect order, if you will. So, graduate, go to college, get married, have a child. Like, I didn't follow that perfect path, and I think sometimes we hold ourselves to this high standard of kind of what Cameron was talking about, is like forgetting about perfection. I kind of refer to that as like living in Disneyland or like a fairy tale land. And that's just not realistic. Like, there's going to be days that are like full of joy and rewarding. And then there's other days that's just exhausted and discouraging where you're kind of ready to give up. So I've kind of just, been okay with the way that I did things, but I definitely made things a little bit harder on myself by not doing things the right way. So whenever I graduated high school, I started college immediately. And then I don't even think I finished a full semester, and it was like, oh, we've decided to move to Dallas. So Trinity's dad and I just kind of made a decision one day, oh, we're going to move to Dallas. And so I was like, okay, let's go. No big deal. I'll start back whenever I get there. And but you know how that story goes. It's kind of like you have this great intention and you set this goal. I'll get started when I get back. And then that never happened. And, 1 year turns into 2 years and so on. So I'll say probably from maybe 19 or so, whenever we moved up here, till 23, after I had my daughter. She was about 2 or 3 years old, I guess. And that's what it took for me to kind of like get that boost of motivation again, to kind of get my engines revving again, to try to want to do that. I needed that motivation to kind of push me to make me do that. And it took me 9 years to get a 4-year degree. And let me tell you about work-life balance. That was a big struggle trying to do it that way. It took a long time. I don't know how many nights I was trying to, put Trinity to bed. And let's just say, maybe the goal is to get her in bed by 9, and that don't happen. She's not actually in bed by 10:30, 11. And then now it's time for me to sit down and buckle down and work on my schoolwork. And so thank God for online classes, because I don't think it would have been possible otherwise. But I finally got it done, and I was grateful, I guess. It kind of happened like that because by the time I was done, my daughter was older and she could kind of see me, walk across that stage when I got my associates, and she's seen me walk across the stage when I got my bachelor's. And so it was pretty exciting. So definitely an opportunity on the positive side, looking at it a different way. Just on the positive side, it gave her something that she's seen that she looked and could be proud of mom for. And so definitely proud of myself there. So, but again, that's just the path that I took. And that's not saying that there's a right or wrong. Maybe, the path or going to college is for you, and then maybe it's not. I have dealt with, I don't want to say judgment around just like having one child. I've been told, oh, that's selfish, it's selfish if you only have one child, or maybe you deal with judgment for not having any kids, or maybe too many kids, or whatever the case may be. And there's just no perfect way. It's just your way. Whatever works for you, then that's your path. And so I think especially with like social media and stuff like that, we look on here and we see these perfect Disneyland or fairyland lives that people project, or maybe it's with our friends that, oh, they have this perfect career and this new house and, this, new car, or whatever the case may be. And we find ourselves like just paddling, and we're trying to keep up because we want that perfection, and it's just not realistic. And it is only disheartening and discouraging when we start comparing ourselves. So it's more about, realizing like who you are as a person, what's important to you, and setting some realistic goals, and just jump in and get started somewhere, wherever your starting point is. Obviously, everybody's starting point is going to be different. So I like to, for myself personally, I like to set like small achievable goals because I need that sense of achievement. So for example, in my work day, I'll kind of write down when I first get here, everything on my work calendar. And then I'll write down, okay, these are the things, no matter what, I got to get done. I got these done today. So there's the glass balls, as Cameron mentioned, I guess. And so I'll write those things down. And so I have that small goal. And so once I get those small things achieved, that gives me that sense of achievement. And so then I can kind of focus on the next day. It kind of keeps me going and keeps me engaged. So just take it easier on yourself. Give yourself a break. Give yourself grace, like Cameron mentioned. And just know, like, reality, our day-to-day is not fairy tale land. Some days are going to be fairy tale and some days are going to be Disney. And that's great. We love those days. But realistically, we know that there are going to be other days that aren't so perfect. And we're going to have to kind of weather those as well. And so let me go to the next slide here. Hopefully this works. So this is one of my favorite quotes. So whether you think you can or if you think that you can't, you're right. So I think it just kind of speaks to our mindset and kind of what state of mind that we're keeping ourselves in. And when we're kind of setting these goals for ourselves, it's like, okay, maybe it's a health goal, or maybe it's a educational goal, or maybe it's a goal to work on your relationship, a relationship at work or a relationship at home. Whatever those goals are, I think whenever we're starting to think about something, we can get discouraged and we can start to think, oh, I don't think I'm going to be successful. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. And you're kind of setting yourself up to fail, versus if you kind of start trying to change your mind and, kind of planting some seeds of positivity in your mind, if you will, then you will be more likely to achieve that goal. So one of the goals in my mind that first comes to mind as a good example is like, okay, maybe it's losing weight. I want to dedicate time to, work out 30 minutes a day, and I want to try to lose some weight. Maybe I need to lose like 30 pounds. If I think about losing 30 pounds, I'm going to start thinking like, I'm never going to get there. I can't do it. But if I break that down and I say, oh, okay, well, I'm going to try to lose 1 or 2 pounds a week, then that becomes like more realistic. And I think, oh, I can do that, So that's one of my favorite quotes.
Kristen,
Yeah.
Does everyone else see her slide, or are you still seeing about me on there? Do you see the quote slide?
It's on
It's
about
not
me.
about me.
Okay,
Oh.
yeah.
About me.
Let me
So
try to
just-
stop. Let me
That's
try to
okay.
stop sharing and reshare. I don't know why it wasn't changing. It's changing on my screen. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay.
I think
Yeah,
we're
let me
seeing
try
the
to do
wrong
this.
screen, because we were seeing like the small thumbnails of your slides, and like the first slide is what we were seeing.
Okay. Okay. Let me see.
So if you
me
share
do
and
the-
do PowerPoint Live, that's sometimes really helpful, because then you can see the next slide. Yeah.
Can you see the next? What can you see now?
Nothing yet.
Oh, okay.
Just
Here, let me
you.
try to do that. Okay. Let's see. Let's see if this works. Can you see it changing?
Perfect.
Is it big? Does it look right? Okay.
It's
I'm
on.
sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so there's my quote, and then I think this is where I left off. Okay, sorry. And I tested that ahead of time and it worked fine. So I'm not sure what went wrong there, but okay. So next thing is just time management. So if you remember, we actually had a professional development series on time management a couple months back, and that's uploaded to Revolution 411 under the Training and Development tab. And then we also had, I believe, one of the first women's ERGs was about how do you organize yourself and that kind of thing. And I think it's different for everybody. I'm still a pen and paper kind of gal, so I need to write everything. And I think it's more challenging now because, especially, in our work lives, we have information coming from all different ways. So we have maybe people coming in your office, and you have emails, and your phone is ringing, your desk phone is ringing, your cell phone is ringing, you're getting text messages. So for me, I have to kind of still write everything down, and that's how I keep myself organized. And so if you've ever been around me at any kind of meeting or anything, you see I have this huge book. It's an art book, but it's a disc-bound. But actually, I have it right here. I'll show it to you. So this is kind of what it looks like. So it has these discs on the sides, and they come in all different sizes. And then you can open it up, and it's very customizable. So it has dividers, and it has the pages, and on the pages, you can tear them back and tear them out and pop them right back in there. And then they come with all these templates and budget templates, and how to keep your house, keeping your house clean templates. There's all kind of things that you can use to customize it. So I have my work one, and then I have a smaller one that I use for my personal life organization. So and that's just what I've tried, and that's what works for me. I know some people are very technology savvy, and they want to have everything on a tablet. So I've tried that, and that didn't work for me. I couldn't keep up with it. I guess I just need something on my desk that I can keep looking back to keep me on track, versus me having to go out and look at something. So that's just what I have found that works best for me. But another way I kind of manage my time, I guess, outside of how I'm keeping myself organized, is thinking about I know, and we all know, we only have 24 hours in a day. And by the time we deduct, let's just say 8 hours of work, maybe some that's less and maybe some that's more, depending on what's going on. And then we have, 8 hours of driving. So we got to deduct that. I'm sorry, 8 hours of sleep. So we got to deduct that. So now we're left with maybe 8 hours. So we've got 24 hours and we've deducted 16 already for work and for sleep. So what do we have left? So for me, I deduct, this is just a glimpse into my day, if you will. So for me, I have to deduct about another hour or so of driving to get to work and to get home from work, depending on what time I'm leaving. And then also just transportation for my daughter, wherever she decides she needs to go, that she lets me know last minute that she needs to get there. I might need to pick up some friends or drop offs along the way, you become a taxi driver at this age. So I deduct about another hour of driving. Another hour maybe for dinner. Like, what are we going to eat tonight? Are we going to eat out? Or are we going to eat at home? Cooking is not my strong suit. So normally for me, it's the first part of that. We're picking up something along the way a lot of the times. And then if it's a basketball day, a practice day, I got to take out about another 3 to 4 hours for that, because we got to get to practice during Dallas traffic. And, we're there for 2 hours and then we got to drive home from wherever they decided to have practice at. And so at the end of the day, that leaves me with about 2 hours, and then I'm exhausted. So what am I going to do with that 2 hours now? And so I usually do, I'll try to get things cleaned up, and then, I'll get my bath, shower, whatever I need to do, and start getting ready for the next day. And so most of my Monday through Friday days, that's about what happens. So I don't have a whole lot of free time lingering around, but that's my choice. So I've made that choice to prioritize those 3, 4, maybe 5 hours to my daughter and her basketball. And I make that choice because I know that this is just a season in my life that one day she's going to get older and she's going to leave mommy, and I'm not going to know what to do with all my free time. So, and my grandma, she used to kind of say, well, you're doing that to yourself, just take her out of basketball. Then you don't have to be stressed out. Just let her do school ball. Don't do AAU. Like, you're doing that to yourself, And I would say, yeah, I am doing that to myself, but this is the most important thing to me. And so whatever that most important thing is to you, you have a choice to what you want to dedicate that time to. Just make sure that it's something that is bringing you joy, that it's something that's positive. Also, or if it's not a task, maybe it's who you're giving that time to. Is that person that you're giving that free time to a positive influence on your life? Or are they a negative Nancy in your ear trying to bring you down and hoping you fail secretly, So I've even had, one of my friends that, we're still friends, probably not as close friends, because it just always seemed to turn into like this competition and it's like, I never signed up for this, but it was having a negative impact on me, because somehow every time I would be around this person, I would leave feeling like I'm not successful enough, or my house isn't nice enough, or, she has this brand new Jaguar and she's the COO of this company, and I'm in my 2010 and my 80s brick home, So I know I've made a decision that, look, although we're still friends or whatever, I don't spend a whole lot of my time, because I have kind of connected the fact that that person, it may not be having the positive impact on me that I want. And so I'm very selective even about, my friends and who I have in my circle, that number one, I'm being a genuine cheerleader for them, and that they're also being a genuine cheerleader for me. It's not a competition. It's no, we're rooting each other on and saying, go, you can do it. Whatever you decide, whatever it is that you want to do. Next thing, plan and actually, let's say, another quote I put on here. I was about to miss it. If you don't sacrifice for what you want becomes the sacrifice. So for me, that's, obviously my daughter playing basketball. And so I definitely don't want that sacrifice to be for her. I'm trying to be the best mom that I can be of my one child, because that's what I feel, that's my limit. That's what I know I can do good at. And then plan and prep for the unexpected. So basically, this is what I was talking about kind of the beginning about a way I try to mentally manage my stress is I think about what are all the things that I fear the most. So whatever those things are, so, maybe it's just example, maybe you have a fear of, oh my goodness, what would I do if I lost my job? Or, oh my goodness, what am I going to do when Trinity's 18 and she's leaving me? Like, I'm going to be so sad. Like, whatever those things are that you fear, I think number one, if you can take the time to think about those things, and it doesn't mean you have to use your free time at the end of the day to do it. Just, hey, when you're folding the clothes or doing the dishes or whatever, just think about what those things are for you. What are your fears? And what I do is I try to go ahead and start to emotionally ingest those things happening. Like, so for example, if maybe I lost my job in 2 weeks, that would be a fear. But what I'm going to right now in the present day, I don't know if that's going to happen or if it's not going to happen. But if it does happen, I'm already processing it right now, that fear. And then I'm saying, okay, well, what can I do ahead of time to prep for that? So maybe it is, okay, I'm going to set aside $50 a month in this, 3-month emergency savings plan. So that way, if it happens, number one, my whole world won't feel like it's falling apart, because I've already proactively thought about worst case scenario. What if these things happen? What am I going to do? And I've put steps in place to, number one, start to process it emotionally. And then what other things can I physically do to try to plan for that? So just in case it does happen, I don't feel like my world is ending. So that's one thing that I do to kind of help manage the stress, because just telling me, oh, don't stress about it, don't think about it, like that don't work for me. So that's kind of how one thing that I do to kind of just kind of tackle the fear of the unknown, if you will. So, okay. So Cameron talked about our EAP resources. And so I have a couple things in here, just additional things kind of under the benefits piece that I'm going to talk about. So for FMLA, if anybody doesn't know what FMLA is, sometimes in HR we get to talking about acronyms and it's like, what in the heck are you talking about? There's so many acronyms. So FMLA is a Family and Medical Leave Act. So it's designed to help employees balance their work, family responsibilities for certain family and medical reasons. So, and then it provides eligible employees up to 12 weeks of unpaid job protection, protected leave per year. I think one of the most common misconceptions that I hear just as people come in my office and request this, and they may be requesting it and don't even realize they're requesting FMLA, but sometimes they think it's like a paid leave, like, hey, you're going to be off for 12 weeks and you're going to receive, 12 weeks of payment while you're off. And that's not necessarily the case. It's actually an unpaid leave. However, we do have additional benefits that kind of like run concurrent with FMLA that could offer you some kind of payment whenever you are off. So a couple of those would be short-term disability, maybe it turns into long-term disability. And the next thing we talked about, hopefully this changes, our maternity leave policy. So this would be another way, another thing that could happen where you could actually receive payment while you're off for maternity leave. So Revolution actually has one of the better maternity policies that I've had through my career. So it's very generous, and it's you just have to be here at least 30 days of employment to be eligible. And after reaching 6 months into pregnancy term or later, and you actually receive 100% of your base pay for a period up to 12 weeks. And so there's more details around it. There's more additional information about, adoption and that kind of thing on revolution411.com. Password is recycle exclamation point. So I still find people that don't know what revolution411.com is. So I try to plug it every chance that I get, because there's so many resources on there. All these trainings and ERG recordings that we do are on there. If you get held up at the doctor's office and you're like, what insurance do I have? And your HR person isn't answering the phone right that second, you can go out here and all the benefits and all the providers are out there. So again, just another couple things, resources out there to kind of help with managing, and hopefully, and with it comes like FMLA, even maybe alleviating one of the fears that you may have, maybe helps with that. So, and then lastly, to wrap my part up, this is one of my also favorite quotes. I didn't even know who quoted this until I looked it up last night because I've just seen it somewhere along the way and it always stuck with me. So it's be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. So good. So good. And I thank you both. I've been writing down several of your quotes as you were saying it, about, the perfection and the sacrifice, just so many things. And I wanted to quickly, I know someone asked on the chat if where you could find that planner, and it looks like we have a link on there. Nancy shared that. I'll be sure to also put that on Revolution 411 in case for any reason, people don't see it here. We'll make sure we have that. And I know we're close to time, but if anyone has any questions while I'm sharing, if you don't mind, Kristen, I'm just going to share a couple quick things before we sign off. And stop sharing kind of in the weird left corner. It should be. Okay, I'll just share really quick. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, or of course, feel free to reach out to Cameron or Kristen after this. I know they'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. We just recently published, there's a group called McKinsey & Company, and they do a lot of different research, even on our business, like recycling and things like that. But they just published a Women in the Workplace. We have put that on our Revolution 411 and the ERG Women. It's published for you. Please, when you have a moment, there's a lot of great information. It talks a lot about some of the subjects we talked about, just very in depth. We hope it'll be in Spanish soon, and we'll put that up there as well as soon as it's translated. So just wanted to bring that up to you. And then in December, we're going to have a forgiveness and empowerment coach, and she's all about learning how to forgive yourself and forgive others as we go into the new year. So sort of continuing this path of how do we truly, feel good about who we are and not be comparing to people around us, or it's all about us. We heard from Kristen and Cameron. You can see how they approach their life and works best for them. And that's what we want to be here for all of you. It's what works best for you and for you to feel supported by those of us here at Revolution. So again, we thank our speakers, Kristen and Cameron, such a great job. We very much appreciate that. And if anyone has any questions, like I said, please feel free to reach out to them, to me, and thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Bye, everybody.